everybody. It is a lovely day for a new episode. This is Dorothy, your host of the Death in Cambodia, Life in America podcast. Today, I have another incredible guest. I am so excited. I kid you not, actually, guys, I've been tracking her for a while, and I have been waiting to bring her onto the show. Today, we have Chef Nite. Chef Nite was born in Cao Dong and raised in Stockton, California, and she is the award-winning chef and owner of the two restaurants Nyum Bai and Lunette, both of which are where we are right now in San Francisco Bay Area. She has been learning Cambodian recipes from her mom over the phone and exploring her Cambodian roots. While eating katiev at a noodle shop in Phnom Penh, she was like, you know what? It's time for me to bring this food to America and showcase this for everybody. And so you can also recognize her from the Netflix show Chef Table's Noodles. And last but not least, her book, My Cambodia, is coming out September 23rd. We are so excited to talk to her about her recipes, her inspiration, and essentially what she's got going on in the future. So Chef Nite, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Dorothy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Chef Nite, or Nite, whatever you would like me to call you. If we were to take you back to the way beginning, did you know that you always wanted to become a chef? Where did your love for food start if you were to go way back?
I definitely did not know that I wanted to be a chef, but I did at an early age. I learned that food was important. I guess there's two parts to this answer too, or just to talk about like how I became a chef. But one of the earliest memory I had as a little girl was when I watched my mom like carefully removed all the bones from the fish that she had cooked and then picked the meat to put inside like this sticky jasmine rice, stuffed the fish in the sticky rice, and then formed a ball. And then she fed my little brother with this fish ball in her hands. And the act of doing that, like observing her from afar, it was like the most tender, loving, affectionate thing that I've seen from my mom. And I often still do think about this too, how my grandma probably did the same for my mom. And so as a little girl, I have witnessed food and experienced love through food. And I think that's when I fell in love with food and knowing the importance of it, of this love language. And the second part, this might be too embarrassed to admit, but I'll share it anyways. But I have always been obsessed with food because it's just, food has brought me so much joy and comfort in so many different levels. Even as a little girl, I remembered in elementary school, instead of going to recess, I would volunteer to work in the elementary school cafeteria during recess. And the only reason why I did that was because I could eat as much food as I wanted. And I was so happy doing it.
Smart girl. She knew how to get the extra portions.
Yeah. And so I was just like constantly thinking about food. I was obsessed with food. But then like the idea of being a chef was never like in my head, or I just never thought about it. But now when I look back, it's just, being a chef was the only thing that made sense because of my passion for eating.
Yeah, you were always a foodie then, right? Would you say, Nite?
Yeah, I think so. Yes. I mean, I've always been like my dad's eating partner in crime because I shared in the cookbook that he is like the true OG of the foodie because he would just spent his time, drove around Stockton and discovered like new hole in the wall places, like the taco trucks and things like that. And so I would always tag along with him growing up.
Yeah. You mentioned something there where you looked at the food that your mom was so tenderly kind of making in front of you, and you thought, wow, this is what maybe my grandma and our ancestors used to eat and make. And so, what was your relationship at that time to your grandma and your mom growing up? Would you say that it was strong, or would you say that the food, as you progressed in it, connected you guys further?
Good question. I mean, I knew about my grandmother because of stories that I've heard from my mom. And I think my relationship with my mom expanded. We got closer and closer throughout the years with food. And I think we were close as any, I guess, Khmer family would get close. But like we grew up like not saying I love you, or we don't give each other hugs, but there's this underlying knowing that they love you. And they
Mm-hmm.
would express it with the things that they do. And then just like the example with the fish and like cooking. And so in that sense, like I was close with my mom. But my childhood was very much like chaotic. And then there's always this aura of some type of mystery and darkness that I was always so curious about. It's like I knew who my mom was, but yet everything was still a mystery in some ways.
It is hard to describe, but I would say that there are so many Cambodian American or Australian or whoever within the diaspora that can totally relate to that. And I would say, even within my own family, just the war and the Khmer Rouge, really, in my family at least, was not talked about. And it was something that everybody tiptoed around, right? Like it was a dark gray cloud that nobody really dared to really question or ask about, but yet it was always there. What was your relationship like being a Khmer person growing up as well? Being a 1.5er, you then were living through the unpopular phase of the 90s and the early 2000s when I feel like it wasn't super cool to be Khmer due to like reputation or whatever that was circling around that. So, what was your relationship with being Khmer as you were growing up?
So I think I was the weird and odd one because I have always had so much pride being Khmer.
Mm,
Always like somehow never I just repped it so hard. Like I'm Khmer, like not even Khmer American. I'm just straight up Khmer. And
yeah.
somehow I've always felt connected to Cambodia, and I just don't know why, but it's just like this sense of just like pride. And so that being said, and this is maybe a big part with how I was raised because my parents spoke Khmer to us. We ate Khmer food. It was all I knew. Like
Right,
going to
right.
school, I was slowly like learning English, but going home, it was like I would imagine like life was very much like Cambodia. Like we set up the newspaper on the
Newspaper.
floor, eat on the floor. We use our hands, pick the rice with the fish, watch
Yep.
like Khmer soap opera in the background, Khmer music in the background. So it was very much Khmer centric. So I wasn't like ashamed or anything like that. I was always very proud being Khmer. And I think too, maybe because there's this big painting of the Angkor Wat in my family living room. And I always would wonder about the Angkor Wat, like how grand and beautiful and ancient the Khmer Empire was back then. And this is like stories I've heard from my mom, which we looked at the painting and talked about it. And it just made me curious about the motherland, but also the history that my mom has shared with me about Cambodia and like the Angkor Wat. It just made me even more proud that like my ancestors and like my lineage came from like such a mighty empire, and also to know that the Angkor like empire like spanned to present day Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And so to me, I'm like, how we were this massive empire, and why are we now like this little country? So that
Yeah.
curiosity also made me even wonder what happened to Cambodia, like the history. But at the same time, being very proud. I mean, to the extent in high school, my senior year, I started a Cambodian club. Actually, that was how much pride I had being
Oh,
Khmer.
that's awesome. That's so awesome. And that was the first one to be created at your high school?
Yes, yes, yes. I approached like one of the cool art teacher because I thought he would say yes because he's like cool and hip and young. I'm like, he'll know about Cambodia, and sure enough, he's like, sure, do whatever you want. You can use my classroom, and so
Oh my gosh. And I think that's awesome to hear because everybody's story is so different. I think everyone's relationship to their identity is so different. And a lot of it really depends on like where you grew up, and again, I guess how much your parents lean into the culture as well, and that's really amazing. It seems like though, as you mentioned, when it came to specifically sharing about the war and the Khmer Rouge, your family, similarly to mine, didn't share too much of that, right, Nite?
Yeah, that's right. It was such a hush conversation. Like, I remember, yeah, as a little girl, I would ask my mom, like, who are you talking to over the phone, like 2 a.m. in the morning? What is going on and why are you crying? So just very curious about this conversation she would have like early in the morning. And then when I would ask about certain things about Cambodia, it was very hush, or the energy of the room would just shift to just like complete sadness and darkness. So, I mean, right then, like I knew something was going on. It made me even more curious. But I understood why it was something that they just didn't want to bring up.
It's so hard for them, and I also feel like it's hard for them to share with us, right? I talked to other second generation or 1.5ers, and the parents had gone through something so horrific. They have the mentality of not wanting to taint us with it, not wanting to burden us with that weight of trauma, and they would much rather just keep it in within themselves. But I think it's really beautiful because it's not the first time that I've spoken to a chef who had said specifically that the act of cooking is almost like a live way of storytelling between mother or father and child. And so that although words maybe not have been the medium for exchanging information, for exchanging stories, it seemed like that was very similar with your mom and her sharing her stories and her recipes through food.
Yeah, my parents did talk much about what had happened to them for various reasons, and very similar to other 1.5 Khmers. It's something that they have forgotten, or there's something that just buried deep in their memory that they don't even want to bring up again. Because one thing that my mom had always said was, we're here now, we're safe, we're not in danger anymore. Let's just move on and forget about the past. And that's one thing she've always said. But then I could see that the past was still haunting the family and like my mom and my dad. And so a direct way, I guess, of just like pulling information out from them, even as a young girl, was to like talk about Cambodia when my mom is like cooking, or when I'm in the kitchen with my mom, like chopping lemongrass or garlic. I would just ask questions like, did you cut lemongrass with grandma when you were young? Or like, how did this taste like when you grew up eating it? Did you go to the market to buy it? And so this would build in this puzzle I've always had of who my parents were in Cambodia. Like, who were they before the war? Why are they the way that they are now? And with food and like little tidbits of just like how they were, like just gave me answers to what I was looking for, like within my own identity and my parents' identity as well.
Yeah.
So that was like always very interesting to me. So much
Yeah.
of what I do is like to discover or to learn more about my identity and who my parents were before the war.
Yeah. You've always been a curious kid, it seems like, curious in so many ways, curious about the history, curious about like even the country and the geography. You had mentioned in the Netflix special and also in the book that is coming out that you really got your epiphany moment when you traveled back to Cambodia and you were sitting down in a stall and you were eating a bowl of katiev and you were like, this is so good. I have to share this with the world. Talk to me about that trip in particular and that particular moment.
I mean, it's still so vivid. This epiphany happened in Phnom Penh about 12 years ago, and I think this is like my third trip back into Cambodia. And at that point, I've been back, yeah, 3 times or so. And so it was on this particular trip, my usual morning routine: get up, walk to the market, get a bowl of katil, because that's what you eat for breakfast there. And I can still remember it so clearly. Like I sat there slurping like a spoon, like a slurping the broth. And then this idea of just opening up a Cambodian restaurant named Nyum Bai just popped to me. It just came into my mind. It was just so clear. And then also it was so clear that I knew what music to play, like how it's going to look like. But also now that I'm chatting with you now, I can look back and I could connect like the sequence of events that sparked this epiphany. I think it was already like I just like food and like sharing Khmer culture and like wanting people to know about Cambodia. And then that moment of just slurping this broth, and it was just so good that it just came to me all at once. Yeah, that's when things got crazy.
The journey was about to begin.
Yeah.
You mentioned it's your third time in Cambodia, so it wasn't even, I mean, you must have had Cambodian food, obviously, the past 2 times that you were there. Was it brewing in your head before then, or was it truly just a shock that all of a sudden it slapped you across?
Yeah, I mean, that epiphany was definitely an aha moment. But
Mm-hmm.
prior to that, the trip to Cambodia was not to learn about Cambodian food or anything like that. I've gone back, I've went to Cambodia the first time, really just the purpose was to learn more about my family's history, to learn more about my parents. And then along the way, I fell in love with the food and realized even more that this food is just so delicious. But it was always in the background. Like my mission was, I'm gonna just learn as much about my family, my parents' history as much as possible. But along the way, yeah, I just fell in love with food, and obviously how food is like the ultimate love language from my family. Even in Cambodia, it just brought us so much closer. And then the ability for them to open up over food was like so evident. Just the curiosity again of also learning how to cook these Khmer dishes while I was in Cambodia. And so I think there's all these little events. And then that bowl of soup on my third trip, my brain somehow just connected the dots. And then the aha moment happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
And
listening to a lot of Cambodian, like 50s, 60s rock and roll too during that time. So I was always thinking about Census and Mud and like how romantic the lyrics were and how amazing the food. I mean, the song were like everything about Cambodia I was like obsessed with the food, the music. And so the epiphany was how do I bring that back to the Bay Area? And then this idea of Nyum Bai happened.
yeah, yeah. Were you scared when the epiphany hit you?
I wasn't scared. It just felt so right. Like that aha moment just felt like this is what I am meant to do. It just felt that, I mean, even though I and I didn't mention this, I had no experience running a business. I have no experience cooking. I had no idea what it took to just start like a food business or to just learn how to cook without any experience. So I have to put that in there as well. But I think this passion and being like crazy about this dream just pushed me to just start somewhere to do it. But along the way, when I came back from Cambodia during that trip, I met some people who helped me on my journey. And I just felt every moment that I doubted myself, I would meet people who would help me with like pop ups and organization that I got into, and friends who helped me started like a supper club and all these things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And at that point, when you had your epiphany, were you already starting to collect recipes from your mom? Like, how many recipes had you collected thus far? Or did you not have any at that point?
I had zero recipes. I
Oh
actually
my
didn't
gosh.
know how to cook anything whatsoever. I mean, I have I like just through just the act of just being in the kitchen in my with my mom growing up, I knew what flavors, like what dishes, how it's supposed to taste, what certain ingredients supposed to go in what soup or some law, whatever stir fry. But I didn't have any recipes whatsoever. So I came back from that trip really with nothing. Like I started out with a blank page. And literally that blank page was this spreadsheet that I've created that started the cathedral broth trial. So that was the first thing I learned how to make actually was the cathedral because I mean, one, it was like one of my favorite thing to eat, and two, I just thought it would be like a nice introduction to Khmer food because at that time, I mean, this was now at least 14 years ago. Yeah, about 14 years ago. Ramen is like it became like that time it was like popular, and then people already know about like Vietnamese pho. So I'm like, oh, like I got to introduce people to Cambodian noodle soup. It's so good. And so the idea of learning how to make kutil was already like the first mission of where to start.
An ode to the epiphany
Yes.
recipe, the epiphany food.
Yes, and that too, yeah. It's like I saw this vision in this bowl of kutil, really like I'm staring at this bowl of kutil and I see all the images and all the little parts that I was gonna do.
I think that's so incredible. And I think that also gives you the foundation because you didn't have any recipes at that point or hadn't really started the full process of talking to your mom and collecting them one by one. It almost allows you to have a clean slate and essentially define Cambodian food in your own way, or you probably had to ask yourself when you were like, I'm going to start this restaurant. I would imagine your question in your head is always, what parts of Cambodian food are absolutely non negotiable to call it Cambodian food? And what parts do I have to be a little bit more lenient so that we can cater to the greater population? So, what was your process in finding the fine line between this is Cambodian food and these things are non negotiable versus stuff that you were a little bit more lenient on?
I was never like lenient on any recipes or dishes that I've put out there.
Mm.
I would say there's no fine line, actually. I don't really compromise with any of the foods that I put out there. So much of what I do is to honor tradition and what was lost. So
Mhm.
try to stay true to the Khmer food that I know, that I grew up with, and the flavors that I fell in love with. And the point is for people to really try like what Cambodian food is. I mean, granted, each Khmer family has like different recipes of amok or katil prumpain or whatever like that. But like the flavors that I put out there are flavors that I grew up with and what was taught to me either from my mom or like from my journeys or from my trips in Cambodia. But never have I ever thought, oh, I should just like maybe take out brahok or not put in this and that to like appease mass like group of people that are unfamiliar with the cuisine. Because what's the point of that if my goal was to really push Khmer culture forward and for people to really experience Khmer food for what it is? And so I think I've never compromised with any of the
Mhm.
flavors and dishes that I put out there.
Yeah. And that was always just a non negotiable. That was always your approach to this
Yes.
whole entire thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. And I think that's the right way to go about it. It also, I can imagine sometimes it might feel maybe scary
Mhm.
because it then feels like a risk as you're opening a business and trusting that the people are going to love the food, right?
Mhm.
Talk to me a little bit about if you were to define Cambodian food, how would you define it?
Before I answer your question, just a side note, like one of the dishes that became very popular in Nyum Bai was brahokti. And I mean, that dish has 50% brahok. And people loved it so much. When I told my mom I was going to put brahokti on the menu, like, are you really? No one's going to come and eat it. I'm like, but it's so good. I like people are going to love it. It's just that delicious. But I believed in it. This is Khmer food. Why am I not going to put it on the menu? Okay.
Yeah.
And so talking about what is Khmer food, right? To me, Khmer food is ancient. It's been around for centuries. It's complex, it's refined, it's giving, like it's fresh, bright, herbaceous. I mean, our ancestors were so wise, like they foraged for food, lived off the land. They learned about fermenting fish and veggies, pickled to preserve, but they also knew that it resulted in delicious food. And the two stars of Khmer food, that what's defined it as well is what I've mentioned earlier, which is prahok. And prahok has been part of Cambodian's history for some time. If you look at the Angkor Wat carving, you see like vats of clay pots and fishes being dried in the sun. Prahok is like fermented fish paste that has like this very pungent smell, but really is what gives so much flavor to Khmer food. And it's so versatile. You can turn it into make soup with it, you stir fry or steam it, bake it. And it's also a very humble food too, where back in the days, like you would just pack like prahok with some rice and you take it out to the field. And then the second star of Khmer food is called kreung. Kreung translates to ingredients, but it's more than just ingredients. It's this aromatic paste with lemongrass, galanga, garlic, turmeric, lime leaves. I feel like I'm missing something else. Shallot. I mean, every family has their kreung recipe, okay? So, and then you would cut it into small pieces and then use a mortar and pesto to make a paste out of it. And then it's just this bright herbaceous scent that it leaves you, and combine that with brahok and kreung. I think that's just what makes Khmer food so good. Just that combination.
Right.
So that's how I would describe Khmer food. It's unlike anything. I mean, I've been eating it all my life. I still cook it almost every day, and it's the only food that I like still crave.
Yeah. No, it's so true. I feel like when you grow up with Khmer food, it's really hard to find other foods that are going to hit the notes all at the same time like Khmer food does.
Yes.
Like you can try any other cuisine, and even as I was growing up, it was like any other cuisine. There's no other cuisine out there that's going to be salt, spice, lime, pepper, sugar. All of your senses are just like turned on. And so it's really, I 100% agree with you there. It's like there's no other food like it. And you end up craving it because it's just, you can't find it. You can't find any other cuisine that's going to hit all the notes at the same time like my food does.
Exactly. And that's why I was just like, I was going to take a chance to put Khmer food out there because it was just that good. And also, I want to mention like the colors of Khmer food and the textural contrast is just so beautiful, right? You have the raw veggies that you eat with like this, like brahok or rice. And you just are able to know like the balance between sweet, tart, and umami. And then if you want, you can add like fresh chilies, make it spicy. And it's very customizable too. If you're going to go to Cambodia and order a bowl of noodle soup, I mean, there's like an array of condiments to choose from. And I think that's also like the fun part of eating Khmer food. Like the base is already good. Like how can you make it better with all this condiments?
Right. Exactly. So you decided, okay, I'm going to open a restaurant, follow my epiphany. I am going to start learning these recipes and I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to open up a restaurant, and non-negotiable, we're going to make the recipes as traditional as we can. You open Nyum Bai in Oakland. I actually also ate there as well. I took my dad there back in the day when it first opened, and because I was so excited. And I will say it was truly like the cutest restaurant. I've been to both. I've been to Lunette and Nyum Bai, and I just feel like Nyum Bai had this vibe. You walked in and it was like bright colored walls, turquoise and pink, and then there would be like the Sinsi Samut blasting through, and it was just truly a gem, I feel, in Oakland. Talk to me about your process in opening and also just the chapter of Nyum Bai as a whole.
I mean, it's bittersweet. I mean, the process, I mean, I had so much help from community, friends and family opening up Nyum Bai because I don't have investors. I never worked with any investors. So the little money that I saved from my pop-up and like managing to get small business loans, everything else were just like time that my friends volunteered to help put the place together, friends and family. So it was a very special place in that sense where you could just feel the love and support from the community. And When I was scouting for a location for Nyum Bai, it was the first place that I saw, and I already knew that was going to be like the location because of the semi-open kitchen and how small it was. And in some ways, too, the neighborhood reminded me of the Mission, San Francisco, and like the Stockton community that I grew up in. So it just felt like home when I saw the place. And so we just transformed that place, and the decoration and the vibe was mainly inspired by the golden era because I was trying to create the space where people can come and have a good time and listen to Cambodian rock and roll music. So much of what people know about Cambodia is either the genocide or like the Angkor Wat. So I wanted this place to represent something fun, like to remember people of the good times, right? And so that's why the color was bright and cute and like with cool neon sign with like abstract art. So it's just like whatever it is that you take away from being in that space. But most importantly, it's like the ritual is we always play Cambodian rock and roll music. And then for the first year that we opened, I didn't know what was going to happen. But we were open.
You're like, let's give this a shot. Open it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You had gotten so many awards so quickly the moment that you opened Nyum Bai. It was just crazy, I think, like how quickly the awards came in. And I remember specifically reading some of the articles about it, and I felt so much pride because I was like, oh my gosh, like I've never seen Cambodian food presented in this way. And it was really refreshing to see that, as you said, the flavors that we grew up with, whether it be all the unami flavors, the fishy and the salty and the spicy and all the things, were actually finally, I felt like it was getting what it deserved. Nyum Bai, you mentioned it was a bittersweet moment in your journey, and you showcased a little bit of this in your Netflix special, but it was also a time where you experienced just heavy burnout, having it be your very first restaurant, and a lot of just family things that were happening in the background that was just a bit too much all at once. Talk to me just a little bit about that, I guess, juxtaposition between all these awards coming at you, but at the same time, balancing the business, balancing the things at home, trying to keep yourself sane. Talk to me just a little bit about that moment in time.
Yeah. So this is like the part of this business that I didn't know I had to learn. There was this dream to open up a Cambodian restaurant and to create space for Khmers to come and enjoy Khmer food and put Cambodian food out there. But when all those awards came in, I was shocked more than anything because I was just like an immigrant kid raised in the ghetto, honestly. And also at the same time, like I was inexperienced in every way as a chef, a leader, a business owner. So it made no sense to me that I was winning like all these awards. And also in the background, just figuring out like my role in the kitchen as a leader. And the last time I saw my dad was at Nyum Bai. And so when he had passed away too, I kind of had to just like, I didn't have time to grieve, and I didn't know like how to grieve because the restaurant needed me, the team needed me. We were just so busy every day that I worked like I was the first one in, the last one out, the first couple years where I worked like 12, 14 hours a day nonstop. I just didn't have time to process all the success or the awards, but it was successful. The words help shed light on Khmer cuisine, and I'm like so forever proud and grateful of like my team's dedication. But I didn't have a second to sit down to enjoy any of the success because I was just on go mode all the time. But now, as I'm reflecting with all the awards, it makes me sad right now just to think that I've never celebrated when I did won all those awards. It's just I didn't have time. Maybe because I didn't think I deserved it, or because other multiple reasons, but it was a success, but yet like on the outside, but in the inside, I was just like, it was just turmoil for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think something that also stands out to me is like you mentioned in the beginning of this episode that like your dad was the OG foodie. Your dad was the OG who it was his tongue that you were really trying to make sure and see if you can get the approval for, because he was the OG person who you respected, and you felt like he truly understood what things were supposed to taste like. And so just to have that happen at the same time of everything, I can imagine was just really difficult to lose that important family member in your life.
Yeah, I'm sure he was very proud of me because the day that he came, the last time I saw him, he did order like a second bowl of kutil to take home. When I do miss him, I just think back about my relationship with him, like in the car, driving around, looking for places to eat, and he's still with me.
Yeah.
So everything just happened all at once. My dad and like the success of the shop and the awards and just like figuring out who I was and like as a leader, as a chef, and all this stuff. Because, like I've said earlier, I just didn't have any experience whatsoever. But I was just so like obsessed and crazy about this idea of just putting Khmer food out there. I was just going to do it without any experience, and then that was just the process of learning it as I was going. On top of being one of the busiest restaurant in the Bay Area, so
Yeah, it definitely was busy. And I can attest to that, you being there, because I remember seeing you back there when I was there. So, and it was like a random Saturday at lunchtime. So the store, it came to the end of its lease and you decided not to renew. How did that feel? Was that necessary at that time? And you felt like it was the thing to do at the time?
yeah, totally. I mean,
Yeah.
my staff could tell that I was not into cooking anymore. They're like,
Hmm.
Chef, you look so miserable. And I was, because after COVID, shrinking the business down with like half the team left, and COVID has changed everything as well. And so just like feeling defeated in so many ways of trying to be your best and do your best and giving it my all, but like my heart just didn't match that. And
Yeah.
so when I knew that the lease was coming to an end, I thought about it again and was going back and forth. Should I close it now? Should I wait? What should I do? And I knew it was an easy decision because I have a team that I've worked with since the restaurant opened. Like they became family in some ways. I felt responsible.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
absolutely. Yeah.
And but when I just knew when I started to cook and I just felt that I didn't have the heart to go show up to work anymore and cook, I just knew that was like I just had to close down. I had to. And
Yeah.
so when I knew that in my bones and my heart, it just clicked. I told my team that this is going to be our last date. We're just going to go with it. And looking back, there was no regrets. It was definitely the right decision for sure to close down the restaurant because it gave me time to reflect. When I closed down Nyum Bai, I took 2 years off. And honestly, I didn't know how tired I was because I slept for like months. Like I didn't I just slept and I slept and I slept. I really didn't know how tired I was. Yeah, it took a toll on me. And I remembered looking in the mirror one day and just making this connection with myself and like this person in the mirror. Wow, like I have not like taken care of you in so
Mhm.
long. So I just slowed down after that and it was the right decision. Uh-huh.
Yeah. I remember when you closed down, but I also remember checking your website, and it seemed like you knew that something else was going to be coming. You just didn't know when that was
Mhm.
going to be. I think I remember reading something on the website or something that something was brewing,
Mhm.
and I don't know at what point you had the idea for Lunette. So, talk to me exactly between that 2 year period. When did you have the inspiration for Lunette, and how did you know within yourself that you were going to approach this differently?
I knew like the Nyum Bai, like what I do is it wasn't over when I shut down Nyum Bai. How it would look like, I wasn't too sure, but I just knew that cooking Khmer food has always been a way for me to learn and discover things about the past to better understand the present and to shape the future. And so that has always been like my thing. And the fast casual idea was just looming around in my head just because the restaurant industry that was had a full service model was suffering. Like they were just had a hard time just recovering from the pandemic. And I also knew myself too that if I were to open another restaurant, it would in fact be even smaller than Nyum Bai. But how it would look like, I wasn't too sure yet and I wasn't in a rush. People had reached out to me and I looked at several locations, but I said no because it just didn't feel right. But also during that time, I wrote a cookbook. And so that was also a chance for me. Writing the cookbook writing process gave me a time to also reflect and just to see like this journey that I've been on. So I spent a lot of my time with the cookbook, and the next project, like opening up a brick and mortar, wasn't like a thing that I like had to do right away. It had to feel right because a few things that I told myself was I was going to open something smaller, something fast casual, like just have a really small team, small menu. It will be a work-life balance where no one works more than 8 hours a day, like all these things. What the mistakes I made at Lunette, like I learned from it. I'm like, I'm not going to repeat the same thing again. So like that work-life balance is very important. Having a small team and location and everything, like everything just have to align perfectly. And so when the ferry building had reached out to me they basically called me and said, I heard you're not doing anything. I'm like, well, that's true. They're like, well, we have this space that might is something that you might be interested in. And so this was also my friend Reem, who was also in the ferry building at the time, had told them about me. And so they reached out and asked me if I wanted to go look at the place. I'm like, sure, why not? I mean, the ferry building is absolutely gorgeous. It's like this historical landmark. Like, it wouldn't hurt to go look. And so, like, with all my decision making, it was like purely on gut and instinct. And when I saw the place where Lunette is at now, I just knew that was going to be the second home of whatever it was that I was doing. And so I just gave them this like noodle bar concept idea, and then they love it. I'm like, okay, I think this might be the place. And so this was about a year ago, actually, when I signed the lease, when the shop opened up. And I don't know, side story to this too is that when you look at Lunette now, we have this big dining room in the front with this beautiful mural.
Right.
The original plan was to only have the 7-seat noodle bar. That was it. Like very tiny, like 7 seats facing the kitchen, and everything was going to be takeout. So that was that
You're
was
like, when I
actually the
said
original idea.
small, I really meant small. You're like,
Yeah, like tiny. But somehow I said, okay, let's just expand it a little bit. I mean, it's still a small restaurant now, but in hindsight, I'm like, I'm so happy I took over that dining space.
happy to. Your line would be literally circling around the ferry building if you did not have more seats.
Yeah, it's like what it was like. It was so tiny because during that time too, I was like, I just got back from Japan. I was just like so impressed with the small like noodle bars there. I'm like, they could make it work. I can make this work too.
Yeah. Throughout this whole journey and this process, another point of pride that I felt following your journey is seeing you on Netflix, Chef Tabled Noodles.
Mhm.
I feel like that was huge for you guys at Lunette and just putting you on the map for so many people who maybe have never heard about Cambodian food. So, talk to me about that process. When did they call you? Did you call them? How long did it take to shoot and all the details regarding that?
Okay, I'll give you the tea.
TTT.
Brian had called me back in, I don't know, late 2022, and he got my number through a mutual friend. And then he texted me, this is Brian from Netflix. And I'm like, oh, I know who you are. It's like, do you have a moment to chat? I'm like, sure. So we hop on the call a couple of times. And then he expressed to me that he wanted me to be part of the new Chef's Table Noodles series for the new season. And then I was like, wait, do you have the right person? Are you like me? Why? Because I told them like I haven't had a restaurant. Nyum Bai closed down because when I think of chef's table, it's like chefs that I look up to. But
Yeah.
they've convinced me, and they're like, "No, you're the one. You're the knight that we want." And so finally, I said yes because it's such like an opportunity of a lifetime to be able to go on Chef's Table Netflix to talk about Cambodian food. It's like a way also to leave this legacy behind. And again, going back to my mission, like how do I really put Cambodian culture out there? And so I'm like, okay, so it made sense to say yes to this experience. And they were so amazing, like the chess table team, like the crew, they were just like the most sweetest, talented, and creative group of people that I've ever met. They made me feel so comfortable because what they do, they're able to pull out really personal stories out of you in a way where you just felt cared for and loved for. And I think they're just like A+ all around. But the experience was like a whirlwind. All my worlds collided to make it happen. Like my mom was in the episode with me, my friends, La Cocina, like all like the past came together to make this happen. I was emotional like throughout the whole process because I just reflect back and my journey and I'm like, wow, I just feel so fortunate to be around amazing people who've helped me, but also to think that my ancestors and my mom like karma has probably given me this life that I have because anytime I felt that it's just I'm done or I'm like I need to do something different or like doubts that I still have about myself, it's just like I think about the incredible people that have made that's been part of my journey. And Chef's Table is one of this moment that I just keep reminding myself that I'm on the right path, even when I doubt myself. And so I would never imagine that I would be part of the Chef's Table family. And the whole process took about 3 weeks. It was such a whirlwind. Like they shot in San Francisco, like 10, 11 hours a day. And then Cambodia happened. And then they waited to come back. And the following year when Lunette opened. So it was like a lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
Chef's Table happened. And my mom was like the person that everyone talked to about who to get things to make things happen in Stockton. She's like, oh, ask your mom. She can like talk to the aunties and the temples so we can go shoot there and get your mom so she can like help us in Cambodia. So my mom was actually a huge part in this too. But one thing, because my mom was such a big part of this, I think after Chef's Table, I think that was when my mom finally understood that like my purpose and everything that I did so much was for her and to honor her story and to learn about her life. I think that like really shook her because she thought that I was just like, oh, this crazy night with her crazy ideas again, cooking, making people eat for hope. But then like she understood like the depth of why I do the things that I do was because of Chef's Table and her herself experienced it firsthand of just the storytelling and how much people were interested in learning about my stories. Wow, I still can't believe that happened. I still can't.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it shows when you watch the episode how this whole experience had connected you and your mother in a different kind of way. I think the videographers did an amazing job at really telling your story from filming in the Stockton house and like filming your mom cook and you cook next to her and ask her questions. And then you in Cambodia learning the actual ancient recipes. And then also at the end of it, the dishes like the numbachuk and the brahak and all the different shots were just beautiful. I remember thinking, I've never seen Numbajok displayed in that way. Like it looked so, I don't know, like upscale and fancy, like in a way that I was just like, this is just so gorgeous. I like the way that it's being presented. So I think that's so amazing for you that this experience was a way that your mom can understand what an important piece she is in this whole thing. Because I understand that sometimes it is hard for the Khmer parents to really understand like where we're coming from when we do the things we do. And to them, it may sound crazy, but at the end of the day, a lot of the times I feel like us 1.5ers and second generation, a lot of what we do is because of them, is because we're trying to honor their sacrifice, honor what they've done for us, honor the journey that they've been on to get here, whether it be war or losing family members, and like saying to them, like, I see you, I understand you. They don't always see that. So I think that's so wonderful to hear that experience was that for you guys. Yeah. Yeah. So Netflix is out, and that was just awesome to see. You are then had mentioned that you, during this time, you were formulating the cookbook, My Cambodia. This is something that I am so excited for, guys. September 23rd. If you guys haven't bought it or pre-bought the book, definitely buy it in all the places, pre-order in all the places that you would get books. It is truly, when I look at that cookbook, it is one of the most beautiful books I had ever seen. When you flip through it, it's like a photo book. I guess a way I can describe it is like I'm flipping through it and it almost feels like I'm in this enchanted dream. Like the colors that you chose, it's like this pastel pink, and the photos and the food, it's almost like we're traveling into this dream-like world. Talk to me about the inspiration behind the book. Did you always know you wanted to write a book? And especially, how did you go about choosing the recipes that were going to be inside of it?
Well, I didn't know that I was going to write a cookbook. I mean, but although this cookbook process started back in 2020, even then, I wasn't sure that I wanted to write a cookbook. But the more I thought about it, it's like we need to have documentation of Cambodian recipes somewhere. So that was the original idea, which is to write recipes of the food that I've learned from the past few years cooking Khmer food. But the inspiration behind the book, you nailed it with the feeling of a dreamlike state. I'm often like very inspired by nostalgia, dream, and like love was the inspiration behind the design of the book. I wanted to create something that is timeless, but also it doesn't have a sense of time or sense of place. That's why the photography looks the way that it looks, like this dream, nostalgic state, because I just think about the past so much and I yearn about certain history and things like that. So I wanted to create that with the cookbook. And most of the recipes that are in this book are dishes that I love to eat, that is familiar with some people that are Khmer and also new, but also they each have a story to tell since the beginning of time when I started to learn how to cook. Like the simple fried egg recipe, like why would I put a fried egg recipe in the cookbook? But it's something that I like first learned how to cook and cooked for myself, like coming home from school. And so it's like there's a personal story to like most of the recipes that are in the book.
Yeah, you did such a great job. When I flipped through the book, the personal aspect, you nailed it right on the head. A lot of cookbooks, I feel like you don't feel the personal aspects and the memories. Everyone just go buy it. But the different chapters, it's literally so beautiful because it's almost written and read like a biography. I guess I can say that. The chapters are broken down by the different areas and the different phases of your life, whether it be Cambodia, Stockton, San Francisco, and you even do an ode to donut shops and creating donuts. And each chapter before is named in that way and categorized by the recipes that kind of remind you of that era. And you start each era with 2 pages long of memories from that period, memories of your childhood, memories from Cambodia, why these things are so important to you. And so it really, I truly felt the love. I think that's exactly the way that it's coming off. The love and the ode that you are giving to each phase of your life. So I really feel like this is what stands makes this book stand out from other cookbooks. It's not just like hey, this is a compilation of recipes, entrees, appetizers, desserts. It's very much like these are the pieces of my childhood, pieces of my past. This is why this is important. I also think it's so amazing because if you look at it, you also add a playlist. I noticed that a playlist to every chapter that you've created. So it's these are the songs that you should play when you're cooking these recipes and why. And so the attention to detail, people, I am telling you, you guys need to check this book out. It's truly beautiful what you've put together. And I guess my question, you've answered this a little bit before. What is your mission with this cookbook that you've compiled?
Shout out to the team also behind this cookbook. They trusted my vision and supported it 100%. And my co-author, Tian, who was this wordsmith that's been able to capture my words and my thoughts when they were just like a jumbled mess in my head. So I've just been also very fortunate in that way too, where I just have this team that was just so dedicated and they just knew like this vision that I had and they just went for it. Yeah, and I like that you touch upon like the organization of the chapters by different parts of my life because this cookbook is memoir heavy. It's very personal. That's why it's important for it to take you on this journey from the moment I started in Stockton to San Francisco and the Cambodia. And then if y'all don't know about why the donut shop is the dessert section, you will find out in the cookbook. But my mission for this cookbook is simple. It's really to make my food accessible to all. Like when I wrote the recipes, we tested it. Like I had 2 recipe testers. We tested it and tested it to make sure one, it was easy to follow and read because knowing that a lot of people are unfamiliar with Cambodian food, like how do we write it in a way where it's short and simple, but easy to understand and not discourage to cook something so new, to make my food accessible to all. Most importantly, to preserve, to document these Khmer recipes. Because I mean, there are 2 cookbooks by Chef Nite who are like, but published in Cambodia that's been out, but like an American published like Cambodian cookbook hasn't been out since the early 90s. And so, I mean, that just tells you something how important to have another Cambodian cookbook. And I often think about like my niece and nephew, like when they are craving like grandma's cooking or craving Cambodian food, like what are they going to rely on? Now there's YouTube channels and things like that, but I can say that there's a cookbook now that they can refer to when they do crave Khmer food.
Yeah, I have several of my cookbooks as well, but I mean, looking at yours, and I'm not just saying this to toot your horn, but I truly think that the way you approached it is so different. It reads like a biography, cookbook, history book / personal story, and in a beautiful, dreamlight photography way. When you say and you look back, I remember you mentioning earlier in the episode, you never really allowed yourself to feel all the awards in the time during Nyum Bai. Looking at your journey now, that it's been close to 14 years since, what was your I made it moment? And are you allowing yourself to feel that joy now?
I made it movement. I mean, it's taken some time, honestly, to enjoy the success. But I think the moment when I realized I made it was probably, I mean, there's so many parts to this. I would say some people would like think that it's like being on chef's table is like the most pivotal moment. But I think I feel accomplished is when I go to work at Lunette and then my team tells me that they're happy to be at work. And when I hear customers at work from all parts of the world, because of Chef's Table, that they're trying Cambodian food for the first time, and then they just love it. Like they were, and also people who come to Lunette because they were inspired to go to Cambodia because of this episode from Chef's Table. So I think when I hear those comments, that makes me tickle and makes me smile. In terms of me being able to accept my success and have joy, I'm leaning into it more for sure.
I'm glad. You should. You should, Nite. If you had to choose one recipe from the cookbook that holds the most memory, what would you say that is?
I mean, yeah, it has to go back to Kathio, Phnom Penh. This is the soup that started it all. It was the soup that inspired me to start Nyum Bai. It was the soup that brought my family together during these dark moments. It's the soup that I was able to bring my friends over so they could eat it. Yeah, it holds a lot of sweet, like the good time memories for sure. And learning how to make it was also challenging, but it reminded me how long my journey has been as well.
Yeah. It has been so amazing to watch you kind of blossom throughout the years and through this journey. I've been silently following you for so long, from like when you opened Nyum Bai and when Lunette opened. And it's really just, I'm so excited that we have a champion in America at this time to really put a stake down on Cambodian food and be proud of it, and essentially have a spokesperson for how amazing Cambodian food is. As I said, so many parts of your journey have been moments that I've felt so much pride in the food that I grew up with. And I feel like it wasn't until I saw these things happen, whether it be on Netflix or you getting all your awards for all these restaurants. And I just hope you know that as you continue this journey, Nite, like there are so many other people who are just like me who have been following you and championing you all this time. And it's like we're not cooks ourselves, but we are waiting for somebody to really let people know that this food is incredible and it's amazing. And you've been able to do that with so much passion. Like it's so clear the passion that you have for spreading the food. And it's also so refreshing to know that you're non-negotiable with it. This is the way Cambodian food tastes. This is what we're trying to showcase. That's just a joy to see and watch. I'm such a big supporter and such a big fan. If we had to give one piece of advice to all the upcoming chefs, because I know there's other chefs out there who are like, I want to do the same thing. I want to promote Cambodian food the way Chef Nite has done. What is one piece of advice you would give all the young chefs who want to share Cambodian food?
One piece of advice. I keep going back to telling even my staff, we all know our answers. Like we just have to follow our truth. You just have to trust yourself. And then also there will be haters that will tell you something else, but you always have to really trust yourself because you know your truth. It's scary, but you just have to trust it. You have to trust the process.
That's wonderful. Well, Nite, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing about your journey. It's so many people I know are going to be tuning in and listening to just like the way that you have moved through the last 14 years and getting on Netflix and now the book coming out. As I said, everybody, this is like the third time I've said it, but pre-order the book. September 23rd, it is coming out. Nite, where can people find you if they want to find you, and where can they order the book?
Well, people can find me with my dog in my neighborhood or at Lunette, Cambodia. And then you can pre-order the book through any of your favorite bookstore websites.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Nite. Everyone, go ahead and check out the book and also do what I did. Take a recipe from the book and actually make it. I made Num Bajuk with my dad over the weekend, and it was truly so much fun. And watching him make Num Bajuk, which he hasn't made since my grandma passed away, actually. So it was really a beautiful moment for us, and I encourage everybody to do the same. So again, Nite, thank you so much for doing what you do and being with us today.
Thank you so much, Dorothy.